In December, it will be 1 year since the release of Need for Speed Unbound, and the main concern when it was released was the amount of content it had. Well, for the past few months, EA was diligently releasing updates. At the time of recording this video, they released 5 updates since the launch. With each, we received some additional content. So logically speaking, since Unbound is the newest Need for Speed on the market, it should have a significant amount of players, or at least greater amount of players than its ancestor Need for Speed Heat. Well, actually, if anything, the player count for Need for Speed Unbound is lower than it is for Need for Speed Heat. Now, one thing we have to consider is that both games are multi-platform games, so we also have players on PlayStation and Xbox, as well as on different PC platforms like EA App and Steam. But this still doesn't justify the lower player count for Need for Speed Unbound on Steam. So, if we quickly look at the trend of Need for Speed Unbound, we can see that the player count is pretty much constant, and around the release of updates it spikes up a little bit. While Need for Speed Heat trend is as well pretty much constant, don't get confused by this spike here when it was available for free to play, that constant is higher for approximately 3 times when comparing to Unbound. And if this trend also applies for other platforms, then we can quickly start counting the difference in player count in thousands of players. Now, the most obvious approach to why this is the case would be to compare the two games and see what did Need for Speed Heat do better than Unbound. Well, the answer is easy. The art style, as Need for Speed calls it, turned down many players. Since there are only 2 possible options, you can like an anime character and driving effects, or you don't. And because the art style is present throughout the whole game, the people who don't find these effects fun and good looking, they won't be playing the game. It's simple. So, from the very start, Need for Speed Unbound put a nail in their coffin and reduced the potential player base they could have. Another possible reason to why Need for Speed Heat have more players than Need for Speed Unbound could be that some players also choose Heat over Unbound because they can build and race any car on the spot, where in Unbound the weekly system seems like a drag. Also, many players got turned off by progression not transferring from campaign to online, so when you started your online journey you had to start from nothing. At the beginning of this video I mentioned that the amount of content Unbound had at the launch was a bit concerning. Well, I have to say that EA did a great job delivering new content, although some of the stuff they delivered within the updates should already been present from the day one, for example police pursuits in online, but at least now when you go play online it doesn't feel so abandoned as it did on the release. So again, if the content is not a major problem anymore, what is it? We already discussed art style and progression system, but the main reason behind all of this is that people are done with spending $60 for the same game they bought a couple years ago. In many aspects, Need for Speed Unbound is just like the last 4 Need for Speed games. The physics have changed just a little bit, the drift to turn physics is still there. Yeah, we can build a car for grip racing, but it feels stupid when the car starts drifting in the middle of a corner because you tap the gas, and it's not really fun that you have to go fully grip to be able to race at least some kind of normally. So for the majority of players, they are not coming back unless they see a major overhaul of physics engine and see that cartoony stuff disappear. Now, if we look from financial perspective, Need for Speed Heat has been on some crazy sales for the last few years, where you could grab it for around $10, so there is no good reason to go buy Unbound until it's on sale, which means that player count for Unbound will probably increase through time, since it will be present on more and more sales, and therefore more people will be buying it. Now, by no means I'm saying that Heat is better than Unbound, but there are even posts stating that on release Need for Speed Unbound sales were down 64% compared to Need for Speed Heat, and that's a lot. Which also explains why Criterion Games, or better to say EA, soon after the launch of Unbound, started releasing unreasonable DLCs, from which they would earn some extra money they lost from the initial sales. So, when we start putting all the pieces together, everything starts making sense. With art style and the same physics model, Need for Speed Unbound turned off a lot of players, which resulted in lower sales and therefore lower player count. And if we even combine it with the lack of initial content, we get to the numbers we have today. There really isn't a reasonable explanation to why switch and go play Need for Speed Unbound if you already have Need for Speed Heat, which after 4 years also has more content than Unbound. Now you heard me speaking my reasons to why does Need for Speed Heat have more players than Need for Speed Unbound. Aside from that, what do you think of Need for Speed Unbound player base being lower than Need for Speed Heat? Do you prefer Heat over Unbound? Please share your thoughts in the comment section. And with that said, this will be all for this video. If you enjoyed it, please drop the like button and consider subscribing if you haven't yet. And as always, have a great day and I'll see you in the next one.